For centuries, the Arctic was a place of isolation, a frozen wilderness where few dared to venture. But today, it's at the center of a global race for resources, trade routes, and economic power. Enter the Arctic Railway, a proposed megaproject designed to connect Finland to Norway's Arctic coast, creating a new trade corridor between Europe and Asia. Supporters claim it could revolutionize Arctic transport, making global shipping faster, cheaper, and more efficient. But there's a problem, or rather several. The railway could cut through Indigenous Sámi lands, disrupting reindeer migration routes that have existed for centuries. Environmentalists warn that it could accelerate Arctic deforestation and destabilize fragile permafrost, worsening climate change. And then there's the brutal Arctic weather, a place where tracks can freeze, permafrost can shift, and snowfall can bury entire rail lines for months. So is the Arctic Railway the key to unlocking a new economic frontier? Or is it an overambitious fantasy doomed to fail in the frozen north? Let's find out. For centuries, the Arctic was seen as an untouched frozen frontier, a place where few humans dared to settle and where transportation was nearly impossible. I mean, think about it. Would you want to transport something through the Arctic? But today, as the ice melts and global trade evolves, countries are beginning to view the Arctic as a new economic frontier, one that could redefine how goods move between Europe, Asia, and North America. The Arctic Railway is at the heart of this vision. Proposed as a 500 to 800 kilometer rail corridor, this project aims to connect Finland's railway network to the Arctic Ocean via Norway's northern coast, creating a direct freight link between Europe and the polar region. If completed, it would be Finland's first ever Arctic railway, unlocking new trade corridors, industrial hubs, and global shipping routes. Right now, most cargo between Europe and Asia travels via the Suez Canal, a route that can be 10,000 kilometers longer than the proposed Arctic alternative. But as polar ice continues to recede, the Northern Sea Route, a shipping lane through the Arctic Ocean, is becoming more accessible, dramatically reducing travel time for global shipments. Finland and Norway want to position themselves as key players in this new Arctic trade economy, offering a faster land-based alternative to traditional shipping routes. But it's not just about international trade. The Arctic Railway could also unlock billions in natural resources. The Arctic is home to untapped reserves of rare earth metals, iron ore, and natural gas. And both Finland and Norway see the railway as a missing piece of infrastructure needed to fully develop these resources. For Finland, which has one of Europe's largest deposits of rare earth minerals, this could be a golden opportunity to dominate the supply chain of critical materials used in electric vehicles, batteries, and modern electronics. Beyond industry, the railway could transform Arctic tourism. Right now, traveling to Lapland or Norway's Arctic coast requires long drives, expensive flights, or slow ferry rides. A direct railway could make Arctic destinations more accessible than ever before, boosting tourism in cities like Rovaniemi, home of Santa Claus Village, and Kirkenes, a key Arctic port. However, while the economic potential of this railway is enormous, the logistical, environmental, and political challenges standing in its way are just massive. The vision is clear, but the path to making it a reality is anything but straightforward. Building a railway anywhere is a challenge, but building one in one of the coldest, most remote, and most unpredictable regions on Earth, that's an entirely different level of extreme. The Arctic Railway isn't just about laying tracks, it's about outsmarting nature itself, and that's not easy to do. One of the biggest obstacles is permafrost, a frozen layer of Earth that looks solid, but it isn't. As temperatures rise, even slightly, the ice within the soil melts, turning the ground into an unstable, sinking mess. If engineers were to lay standard tracks, the railway could warp, crack, or collapse within a few years. The only solution? Insulated foundations, ventilated embankments, and raised track beds designed to prevent the heat from the trains from thawing the ground below. And then there's the obvious one, the weather itself. Arctic temperatures can drop below -40 degrees Celsius, where metal components can become brittle and snowstorms can bury rail lines for months. Specialized snow clearing technology, heated tracks, and reinforced steel would be essential to keep the railway running year-round. Maintenance would also be a nightmare. Unlike most railways, Arctic tracks would be inaccessible for long periods during extreme weather conditions, meaning they must be built to last with minimal human intervention. Getting the materials and workers to the construction site is another challenge. The railway would pass through one of the least populated regions on Earth, meaning everything, steel, gravel, equipment, and entire work camps would have to be shipped in from distant suppliers. The logistics alone is mind-boggling and adds millions to the cost. And then there's the environmental impact. The railway would cut through protected forests, reindeer migration routes, and delicate Arctic ecosystems. Engineers would need to create wildlife crossings and noise reduction systems to minimize those disruptions. But even then, the long-term effects remain uncertain. Few railways in history have faced conditions this extreme. If Finland and Norway can overcome these obstacles, the Arctic Railway could become one of the most advanced in the world. But if they fail, it could become just another buried dream lost beneath the ice. The Arctic is home to the Sámi people, an indigenous group whose way of life has remained largely unchanged for centuries. The proposed railway would cut directly through Sámi reindeer herding lands, threatening one of the oldest surviving traditions in the Arctic. For the Sámi, reindeer herding isn't just an economic activity, it's a cultural identity passed down through generations. The railway could fragment migration routes, disturb grazing grounds, and disrupt the entire way of life. Sámi leaders have voiced strong opposition, stating that this isn't just a transport project, it's a fight for their land and their future. Indigenous rights activists argue that this railway follows a long history of development projects that ignore indigenous concerns. While Finland and Norway have promised environmental impact assessments and consultations, trust between Sámi communities and government officials remains fragile. If the Arctic Railway moves forward, it will need more than just engineering solutions, it will need political and cultural diplomacy. On paper, the Arctic Railway sounds like a game changer for global trade. A direct rail link from Finland to Norway's Arctic coast that could provide a faster, cheaper alternative to traditional shipping routes, cutting down transport times between Europe and Asia? That sounds pretty good. With melting ice opening up the northern sea route, some believe this railway could be the missing link in a new Arctic trade network. But here's the problem. Arctic shipping is still highly unpredictable. While climate change is making the northern sea route more accessible, it's still only usable for part of the year. Ice conditions vary from season to season, and while some years see record-breaking ice melt, others bring unexpectedly harsh freezes, making long-term shipping investments risky. Then there's the cost problem. Estimates put the railway's price tag between $3 billion and $6 billion. And so who's actually going to pay for it? Norway has been hesitant to commit, questioning whether the railway would even attract enough freight traffic to justify the cost. Finland is interested, but without strong guarantees from shipping companies and investors, it's a tough sell. Even if built, the railway wouldn't immediately replace the Suez Canal or traditional European trade routes. Most major shipping companies are still hesitant to ship their operations to the Arctic, fearing high insurance costs, unpredictable ice conditions, and the lack of established infrastructure. For this railway to succeed, it needs major industry backing, and that's far from certain. While some believe Arctic trade is the future, others see it as an expensive gamble on an industry that might never take off. Will the Arctic Railway unlock a new economic frontier, or will it become another overhyped megaproject that never sees the light of day? The answer to this remains to be seen. The Arctic Railway has been on the table for years, but the question remains, is it even possible? On paper, the project promises to transform trade, open up new economic opportunities, and position Finland and Norway as key players in Arctic logistics. But so far, it's remained just an idea, with little movement toward actual construction. One of the biggest barriers is funding. With an estimated cost ranging from $3 billion to $6 billion, neither Finland nor Norway has fully committed to financing the project. While there's been interest from investors, there's no guarantee the railway would be profitable. Without solid financial backing from the private sector or international development banks, the project could remain stalled indefinitely. And then there's the political uncertainty. Finland has been pushing for the railway, but Norway, they've been far less enthusiastic. Concerns over environmental impact, indigenous rights, and the long-term viability of Arctic trade have made the Norwegian government hesitant to sign on. Without both countries fully on board, it's unclear how the project could proceed. Even if financing and political support are secured, the engineering challenges remain massive. Constructing a railway in one of the harshest climates on Earth, where permafrost shifts unpredictably and infrastructure must withstand extreme temperatures, is hugely expensive and time-consuming. And finally, there's the demand issue. If Arctic shipping doesn't expand at the pace some predict, the railway could become a financial black hole with too few trains running to justify the cost. With all of these obstacles, the Arctic Railway remains an uncertain dream, one that could either reshape Arctic transportation or never leave the drawing board. The Arctic Railway is an ambitious, high-risk megaproject that could redefine global trade, but only if it actually gets built. If Finland and Norway can overcome extreme weather, economic skepticism, and indigenous opposition, the project could be one of the most important railways of the 21st century. But the odds are not in its favor. Climate change is making Arctic development unpredictable, investment interest has remained weak, and local resistance is stronger than ever. But what do you think? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos on current and future mega projects.